Carol Jennings had been at Hollowgate Systems for 18 years. She had helped build the company's compliance department from the ground up, making it a vital part of the organization. So, when Raymond Shaw casually announced, "We're eliminating your department, budget cuts, pack up by Wednesday," she didn't react the way he expected. She didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't even get angry. Instead, she calmly nodded, stood up, smoothed her skirt, and walked out. As she left his office, she knew this was just another chapter in a long career where patience had always been her greatest ally. Carol had spent years at Hollowgate, watching it grow from a small startup into a respected leader in data security. She had built the compliance department from scratch, protecting the company from legal disasters, saving them millions in fines, and ensuring they followed regulations. But Raymond Shaw, the new CEO, saw things differently. To him, compliance was just unnecessary red tape. His focus was on profit, and he believed that cutting corners was the fastest way to achieve it. Over time, Carol had watched him push the company further into risky territory. He had ordered her department to overlook important regulations, falsify documents, and even bypass security protocols. She had documented everything, carefully keeping a record of every violation, knowing that one day, Raymond would make a move against her department. And now, that day had come. After receiving the news, Carol quietly went back to her desk. She opened her drawer, pulled out a small voice recorder, and stopped today's recording. This was the final entry she would need. She texted Janine Brooks, the head of legal, asking to meet on Wednesday. Janine quickly replied, agreeing to meet at 10 a.m. 3 years ago, Raymond had been brought in to streamline operations. At first, he made small cuts and pushed for efficiency, but soon, his disregard for compliance became more obvious. He wanted results fast, no matter the cost. Carol tried to reason with him, but he always dismissed her concerns, telling her, "Just make it happen, Carol, nobody gets hurt, everybody wins." But Carol knew better. She had seen firsthand the damage that could be done when companies put profits before integrity. People lost their jobs, lives were ruined. Growing up in a working-class family, Carol had learned early that loyalty meant little in the business world. Her father had worked for years at the shipyard, only to be laid off just before he was eligible for his pension. His years of hard work had meant nothing. From that experience, Carol had learned to always be prepared, to keep her eyes open, and to trust no one completely. When she started at Hollowgate, it was a small company with big potential. The founders needed someone to build a structure around their vision, and Carol was that person. She expanded the compliance department, hired the right people, and implemented systems that kept the company safe from legal trouble. The previous CEO, Thomas Miller, had always supported her work. He had trusted her to protect the company. But Raymond Shaw was a different story. He was all about growth at any cost, and he saw Carol's department as an obstacle to that. The first sign of trouble came in 2021, when Raymond interrupted one of Carol's presentations on new security regulations. "These extra steps are killing our deployment schedule," he said. "Our competitors aren't doing all this. We need to be more flexible." After the meeting, he pulled her aside and told her, "Sometimes we need to interpret regulations creatively." That's when Carol knew something was wrong. She started recording everything, meetings, phone calls, even casual conversations, just in case she needed evidence. Raymond's behavior became more reckless. He pushed for products to be shipped without proper testing, ordered falsified training records, and even signed off on compliance certifications he hadn't reviewed. Carol documented it all, knowing that one day, Raymond would make a move, and now he had. The day after Raymond's announcement, Carol's team was in shock. Vivian, her deputy, was furious. 18 years, and this is how they treat us, she said. No warning, no transition plan. Carol let her team vent, but then she took control. "We need to focus on documenting everything," she told them. "Just because they're eliminating us doesn't mean the work disappears. Someone will have to pick up these responsibilities." Later, Carol met with Philip Johnson from IT Security, one of her few allies. "It's insane," he said. "When auditors find out there's no compliance function, they'll go crazy." Carol asked Philip to preserve the access logs and backups of their compliance system, knowing that Raymond would try to cover his tracks. Back at the office, Carol received a termination agreement. It offered her 2 months' severance in exchange for her silence. It was a paltry sum for someone with her experience, a final insult from Raymond, but Carol wasn't going to let him get away with it. She placed the unsigned agreement in her drawer and prepared for her meeting with Janine. The next day, She met Janine at 10 a.m., with a folder full of evidence. She had emails, memos, meeting notes, and audio recordings proving that Raymond had violated numerous compliance regulations. She laid out everything methodically, showing how Raymond had bypassed security protocols, falsified documents, and even misrepresented their security practices to clients. Janine listened carefully, her face growing more serious with each piece of evidence. When Carol finished, Janine asked, "Why bring this to me now, Carol?" Carol explained that she had tried to address the issues internally, but Raymond had ignored her concerns. She had even tried to wait until the next audit, but the elimination of her department had forced her hand. Janine nodded, closing the folder. "I'll need to verify all of this," she said. "I'll take it to the CEO." Carol left the meeting feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. The wheels were in motion. Later, she had lunch with her team, trying to focus on their farewell instead of her upcoming confrontation with the CEO. At the lunch, the owner of the restaurant offered them a private room, a small kindness that almost broke Carol's composure. She felt guilty. Her team had trusted her, and now their futures were uncertain, but she was determined to see it through. The next morning, Carol received a call from Janine. The CEO had reviewed the evidence and agreed to investigate the violations. Raymond Shaw's days at Hollowgate were numbered, and Carol knew that this was just the beginning of a much bigger battle, one that she was ready to fight. Even though it wasn't easy, and especially when it wasn't convenient, I smiled and said, "Even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient." My team laughed, and for a brief moment, the heavy atmosphere in the room lightened. After lunch, I returned to the office, raised my glass of iced tea, and spoke with sincerity. "The work we've done here matters. Even if it wasn't always appreciated. I'm proud of everything we accomplished together. And I'm certain each of you will find success wherever you go next." Vivian wiped a tear from her cheek and said softly, "It won't be the same without you, Carol. You taught us the value of integrity in this office." As I finished clearing my desk, packing up the last of my personal belongings, Raymond appeared in the doorway. He looked a little too cheerful. "All set to go, Carol?" he asked, his voice light. "I'll need your badge and company phone before you leave." I handed them over without a word. His smile faltered just a bit when he saw how calm I was. He seemed to try to reassure me with, "I know this is hard, but business decisions aren't personal. I've always respected your thoroughness." His tone was condescending, but I kept my composure. "Of course, Raymond. Business is business." He nodded, looking pleased that I wasn't causing trouble. "The severance agreement, did you have a chance to look it over?" "I did," I said evenly. "I'll have my response by tomorrow." Something in my voice must have made him suspicious, because his eyes narrowed. "The terms are standard. I'd recommend not dragging this out." "Thank you for your advice," I replied, finishing the task of packing my things. "I'll be in touch." I walked past him to the elevator, feeling his eyes on me. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt on his face. It felt good. Let him wonder what was coming. I reached my car and my phone buzzed. It was a text from Philip. "You should know, Raymond accessed the compliance system after hours last night. Looks like he was changing some documents. All changes are logged, per your request." I felt a rush of adrenaline. It was unexpected, but not surprising. Raymond was trying to cover his tracks. The good news was, we had all the original records preserved. His actions were just making our case stronger. I texted back quickly, "Can you secure those logs immediately?" Philip responded almost instantly. "Already done. I've sent them to your personal email, encrypted. The key phrase is the saying you liked from our first meeting." A smile crept across my face as I remembered Philip and our first conversation 8 years ago. Back then, I had told him in compliance, "We're not the party police. We're the ones who make sure everyone gets home safely after the party." Later that evening, I got another message. This one was from Janine. "CEO has reviewed the evidence. Emergency board meeting set for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your presence is requested at 11 a.m. confidential." As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed one last time. It was Raymond. "Carol, let's meet for coffee tomorrow at 8 a.m. Need to discuss your transition package." Maybe we can improve things if we can align. I wasn't surprised. Raymond was getting nervous. Maybe he had figured out I'd met with Janine, or maybe he was just trying to buy my silence. Either way, his timing told me a lot. I replied, unfortunately, not available at 8. Happy to speak by phone. His response came quickly, dinner then, my treat. Sorry, prior commitment. We'll call you tomorrow afternoon. I turned off my phone and settled into bed. Tomorrow was going to be an interesting day. Raymond's world was about to come apart. Thursday morning, I dressed carefully. I chose a charcoal suit I reserved for important meetings, paired with pearl earrings that had belonged to my mother and a silk scarf in Hollowgate signature blue. If this was my last day at the company, I would leave with dignity. At 10:30 a.m., Janine called. The board is ready for you now. Can you come directly to the executive conference room on the 12th floor? I'm already in the building. I'll be right up. I had arrived early, sitting in the lobby cafe where I could see everything happening. Raymond had arrived at 7:45, looking more disheveled than usual. At 8:30, 2 board members walked in together, their faces grim. By 9:15, the entire executive team had arrived, none of them stopping for coffee. They were all focused, and it made me wonder how much they knew. As I rode the elevator to the 12th floor, my heart raced, but I reminded myself this wasn't about revenge. It was about holding people accountable for their actions. The executive conference room was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the Seattle skyline. A long walnut table sat in the center, surrounded by 12 serious faces. Raymond sat at the far end, looking pale, and beside him was Gerald Winters, the CEO, who usually smiled a lot but now wore a hard expression. Miss Jennings, thank you for joining us, Eleanor Richardson, the chairwoman of the board, said. Please have a seat. I sat down across from Raymond, who wouldn't meet my eyes. We've spent the morning reviewing the evidence you provided to Miss Brooks, Eleanor continued. We've also heard Mr. Shaw's response to these allegations. Gerald leaned forward. Before we continue, I want to make one thing clear. We are taking this matter seriously. The board has authorized a full independent investigation. I nodded. I appreciate that. What we need from you now, Eleanor said, is an explanation of why you gathered this evidence over 3 years without bringing it to the attention of the board or outside authorities. It was a fair question. They wanted to protect themselves. I did raise these issues through the proper channels at first, I answered. I have documentation of multiple attempts to address compliance violations directly with Mr. Shaw. When that didn't work, I began documenting things more thoroughly. That doesn't explain why you waited 3 years, one of the board members pressed. Because I believed in the company, I said calmly. I wanted to fix the problems internally. I was building a case that couldn't be dismissed as a misunderstanding. And honestly, I hoped Raymond would change before things got this far. Raymond finally spoke up, his voice tight. This is clearly retaliatory. Carol was upset about losing her position. Janine jumped in. Actually, the first documented issue in Miss Jennings' evidence is from before any discussion of department elimination by nearly 3 years. The logs confirm the timeline. Eleanor turned to me again. In light of all this, we'd like to discuss your future with Hollowgate. I looked her in the eye. With respect, Chairwoman, my concern is not for my position. It's for the company's integrity and the potential harm to clients. Gerald spoke up. We believe it would be in everyone's best interest if you considered returning to help us address these issues.